Hello and welcome to our offering today, Strategies for Undergraduate Student Success, Strengthening the Walden Pillars. Our presenters, Dr. Kimberly Blackman, Dr. Patty Costello, and Dr. Shelley Armstrong, originally presented this information at the Walden 2019 Summer National Faculty Meeting. We're super glad to have them on the line today again. And they will be discussing the same elements that they discussed with the face-to-face participants and the learning outcomes and Walden pillars, which are develop an understanding of 3 programs approaches to enhancing undergraduate student success, determine ways to enhance connection with undergraduate students so their unique needs are addressed, support the university's strategic plan with a focus on the pillars. Number 1, more likely to remain at Walden in graduate programs. Pillar number 2, personalized learning experiences. And pillar number 3, advanced career and personal goals. At this point, I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Kimberly Blackman. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Lita. I really appreciate the introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Kimberly Blackman, and I'm the Program Director for Criminal Justice in the School of Public Policy and Administration. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the retention and graduation rate pilot programs that we have started in the Criminal Justice Department for our undergraduate students. Next slide. Our first project was for retention was an at-risk outreach program, and we came up with this after looking at aspects of our retention issues, particularly in our undergraduate programs, revolving around students who may have academic issues. They may be at risk of dropping from the program for various reasons. Or looking at the students who may be a little bit apprehensive about beginning the program or staying with the program because perhaps they have been out of school for a while, and so they have a lot of anxiety around the entire academic process. So one of the first things that we did was come up with a way of identifying those students who may be at risk of dropping from the program. Either in their first term or within their first year. To do that, I really had to depend on my faculty to help make those identifications because the faculty are the first line of defense when it comes to maintaining our student enrollment. So I developed a system of an at-risk report, which I put into SharePoint, and I sent a link out to the faculty members so that they could complete this email me form that would come directly to my email. And in that form, they identify the student by name, student ID number, the course that they are in, and describe what the issue may be. Either they are not performing well academically because they have poor grades on their assignments, or perhaps it is their participation that is lacking in the class. They aren't actively engaged in the discussions, or they aren't submitting work on time. Perhaps those students may also have other issues in their learning that, or things that are prohibiting their learning process, such as a life crisis. Maybe they have ill family members that they are taking care of, or they have their own health issues, or maybe they're relocating or on a military deployment. So the faculty really help to identify the students and what their issues are. And in addition to that, they must also report out what actions they have taken to help resolve this issue with the student. Are they providing them with additional office hours? Do they have an action plan put together for that student? Are they working with them on an incomplete? Are they giving them extra time on their assignments? Or have they referred them to any resources? We also try to meet with advising each quarter, either by email or by phone call, so that we can then let the advisors know who these students are that we feel need a little extra attention. We find a lot of students that would prefer to discuss some of their issues with their advisors versus their faculty or their administration. So that's why it's really important for us to try to keep those advisors in the loop so they know what actions we have taken to try to resolve the issues with the student beforehand. Next slide. Second secondly, we decided to focus not only on those students that we knew right offhand may be struggling, but we wanted to be able to prevent our students from struggling to begin with. And the best way to do that was to reach out to those new students. As I mentioned before, sometimes students come into the program very apprehensive about the whole process. They're unfamiliar with what's expected of them. They may have gone to a traditional university and now they're coming to us as an online option that may not have been previously available to them at their prior institution. And so it takes a little bit of adjustment and a little bit of getting used to for the students. So in order to reach out to our brand new students, I obtain that list each term, and I personally contact them by email, providing them with a welcome message that has my contact information and just provides them with a little bit of enthusiasm and motivation and reassuring them that they have a support system here. I think that's incredibly important for students to know when they start any type of new adventure that there is a safety net there to help relieve some of that anxiety and that apprehension. I then check in with these students at the end of the term to find out how their first class went. Are they excited about the next course? Try to get some feedback from them on the course that they took, as well as maybe their faculty member, and help to keep them motivated for the next quarter that's coming up. I then check with these students after the first year, because we don't want it to be just a Band-Aid, just a temporary solution. We don't want the students to feel like they have been completely forgotten. So by reaching out to them again at the end of the first year, it reminds the student, hey, we're still here, we're aware you're still with the program, we still want to support you. How are you doing after this first year? Are you ready for what's to come? And what can we do to help assist you? This is really important because or end of term, or the first term retention and first year retention are the two most critical aspects that we need to look at. And we're still struggling a little bit with the first term retention. So we're looking at other ways that we can kind of help bolster this when it comes to our new student outreach. But we have seen a really good difference when it comes to the first year retention. So this has been very positive and very motivating for those of us in the criminal justice department. Next, we also wanted to look at our graduation rates, because we don't want to just retain students for that first term or that first year. We want them here for the whole program. We want them to graduate from their programs and then move forward, perhaps, for those students who are interested in going on and getting their graduate degree. So whatever we can do to help make them lifelong learners is what we want to do. So in order to help improve our graduation rates, as I mentioned before, we contact them at the beginning or at the end of their first term, and then at the end of their first year. Now we want to look at where they are at the halfway point of their programs. So we work with the registrar to identify those students that are nearing that halfway point and reach out to them to find out how life is going for them. We want to make sure they're still on board with the program, that they're still excited, they're still motivated, and see if there's anything that can be remediated for the student by us in the faculty and administrative side. So I came up with the acronym of DREAM because I wanted this project to really have a significant amount of meaning and depth to it. And I just love acronyms because they just serve as really good motivators, I think, to help make the program and the project cohesive. So DREAM stands for Disasters, Resources, Employment, Academics, and Motivation. So for disasters, again, we want to look at the life circumstances or whatever life crises that students may be experiencing that we can assist them with. There are tons of resources available to our students at Walden University, and most of the time students aren't really aware of them, or they're unfamiliar, or they may be a little apprehensive about asking about them. So if we can make that connection with a student that we know is going through a particular type of life crisis, maybe they're having medical issues that's really impairing their ability to perform well in class, but they're embarrassed about it and not really sure what to do. So we refer them to disability services so that they can get the additional time and resources that they need in order to be successful in class. Again, for those students who may be on military deployment, we connect them with military services so they are aware that there are accommodations that can be made for our servicemen and women who may be on a deployment. Resources. Funding is always, in the forefront of most students' mind. Going to school is expensive, and we want to make sure that our students have enough funding to be able to cover their program. For those students who may be concerned about finances, we encourage them to contact financial aid, make sure they stay on top of their funding issues, and provide them with resources for more information. For example, many of my students in the criminal justice program are law enforcement officers and are eligible for public service loan forgiveness. And they aren't even aware that this program exists. So that's something that we can refer them to help reassure them that there is some assistance for funding when it comes to their tuition. Employment. If the student's not currently employed in their field of study, what are their career goals? Again, this is a great motivator. We want to keep them looking down the road at the finish line and what the ultimate goal may be for them in their career. So we can send them to the Career Center. There's tons of resources available through Career Services. I have assisted students with resume building myself so that, and helping them with networking. We encourage them to attend various conferences for networking, as well as to help bolster their professional development and increase their skills on their resume. Academics, it's really important to make sure that halfway through their programs that the students are on track academically to graduate. If they don't have the GPA needed for graduation, we would rather know that sooner rather than later. So the earlier we can attack that issue and try to resolve it, the better. So by contacting them halfway through and looking at their GPA issues and their academic issues, we can go ahead, develop an action plan to get them back on track to help bolster up their GPA and their academic records so that they can proceed forth in the program and graduate successfully. And lastly, motivation. We want them to still be excited about the future. We don't want them to get bogged down with, the monotony of, what can, often be this routine of going to school, going to work, taking care of family. It can be a lot for some students to handle sometimes. So again, we want to provide them with that encouragement, that support system, let them know that we're here for them, and they can always reach out to us for assistance and motivation. And many students really do take us up on it. I have students that I text with on a regular basis, email me on a regular basis, and sometimes they're just looking for that extra little incentive and that thumbs up saying, hey, you've got this in the bag, you're doing great, just keep going forward and let me know if you need anything. So the goal of this project has been to increase our graduation rates by 25%. We're getting close. We are hovering right about 22% increase since we started this project a year ago, and we're hoping to get that to continue to increase as we go forward. This approach has been very collaborative. I could not have done it on my own. The faculty that I have are just phenomenal. They do so much for our students and our programs, and I can't thank them enough. They are really good at being compassionate and working with students and making sure that they can do whatever they can to sort of wrap their arms around the students virtually in order to help support them and propel them forward in the program. In addition to that, career services, disability services, military, advising, financial aid, enrollment, admissions, they are all an integral part of this process and help to put together this plan so that we can help our students succeed. And I am eternally grateful. So that is our dream.
Thank you so much, Dr. Blackman. At this point, we're going to turn things over to Dr. Costello. Welcome.
Thanks, Lita. Hi, I'm Dr. Patty Costello, I'm the Program Director for the BS Psychology program, also the BS in Forensic Psychology program, which is in teach-out mode. Between the two programs, we have over 800 students. I'm going to talk to you today about a course that we've added to our program of study, the Psychology 2000 Psychology Seminar course, and the mentor component component that goes along with the course. Next slide, please. In 2016, we added a required course, Psych 2000 Psychology Seminar. Because psychology is such a popular major, both at Walden for undergrads and any given university, we wanted to address the issue that a lot of students come into psychology not knowing exactly what it is or what the career options are when they're done, what they can do with a bachelor's degree versus when advanced schooling is needed for their career area of interest. So to address that disconnect of what does this mean for me to be a psychology major, we created the seminar course, Psych 2000. This course is required for all of our students. It cannot be transferred in. And students cannot take any other psychology course before they've had the Psych 2000 course. We use a textbook called the Psychology Major Career Options and Strategies for Success. It's in its 5th edition, but the good news is that we're working with the textbook author, the first author, Eric Landrum, when he's updating his textbook. One of the comments, when I get to the comments part of student feedback, is that the textbook, while students generally like it, definitely speaks to an audience of very traditionally aged students. So I worked with Eric Landrum to identify all the areas in the text where he mentions high school or something about dorms or something about being very traditionally aged, and remove that language so it's more inclusive of all students going back to school at all ages. So we plan to continue that textbook. Eric Landrum provides an introduction to this course as well, which is great. So students can feel that personal connection right away to that textbook authored. The course, because it's an undergraduate course, is set up in 6 weeks. There are a range of assignments, discussions, worksheets, journal reflections, and then students complete a study planner, which includes course planning, thinking about internships, networking, volunteering, everything they should be thinking about as early on as possible so they can map out the rest of their degree and what they'll be doing at their time at Walden. Week 1, students talk about why they're majoring in psychology, what concentration area they've chosen. We've had students in this particular week realize that psychology maybe isn't the best major for them and switch to human services or social work, criminal justice, still at Walden, but they switched degree programs. So I think the week is doing what it's supposed to be doing, is getting students to just to really figure out if they're in the right major. And they also talk about plans as far as further schooling, and then they chat with each other in the discussions boards about that. Week 2, they're looking at career options and job search strategies. So here we're giving students a good sense of what they can do with that bachelor's in psychology versus what they might need an advanced degree for, and then how to look for jobs, where are the best places to look for jobs. They're also putting together a cover letter, a resume, and a CV. So even if it doesn't have a lot of meat to it, they're at least getting started on that process and realizing what it all entails. And then they also are exposed to the Career Center at Walden, which is a handy resource for them as well. In week 3, they're exploring graduate studies. So what does it mean to go to graduate school? What do I have to do to get in? Should I be thinking about graduate school? And this week is, I think, eye-opening for students that weren't planning on graduate school or maybe hadn't picked out the right program for them. Also, I think it really forces students to realize that they have to really plan ahead. If they're going to ask for letters of recommendation, they need to give faculty more than a week's notice. Some of these programs require you to apply for a year in advance, to be thinking about taking the GRE or any other sort of graduate school exam that might be required. In week 4, they're writing for the discipline and dispelling misperceptions about psychology. So here they're learning APA, getting introduced to this idea of a specific way of writing and providing evidence for anything that they talk about that's not just an opinion. Week 5, research skills and critical thinking strategies. So students are introduced to the library, the different databases, how to enter keywords, how to find research and websites that are legitimate sources of information to back up some assertions they're making in their papers and discussion. They're also looking at different critical thinking and biases as well. So how to be able to discern fact from fiction, what's just information or someone's opinions on a website, and then how different thinking errors and biases can really keep you off track, and then how to identify them in others as well. Week 6, moving forward, planning for success and positive social change. So here's where they turn in that final course planner. We also work with advising. So advising can help students plan courses, think about taking an internship. So this isn't, again, something that the planner isn't something they're held to per se, but it really just forces students to think about, what is my long-range plan? What courses should I be taking? Should I be planning an internship? What other courses across other programs might be a good fit for what I'm interested in? What kind of networking should I be doing and thinking about? And then they're also reflecting on their social change plans, what they're doing now, what they're planning to do in the future. Students generally are positive about this course. We're doing a separate study on the course itself and the assignments and presenting that this month at the annual conference on teaching in Denver, and this is for psychology instructors. So we've definitely done a deep dive of this course. We do have students that initially think it's going to be a waste of their time. But the nice thing is that students will often email their instructors or fill out in the survey and say things such as, initially, I thought this course was going to be a waste of time. I was not thrilled to take it. I felt like this was already taken with my general education courses. However, I learned APA formatting, graduate school application process, employment expectations, and other things I never thought about before. So thank you for having this course available. So that's good news. In fact, I just had a student email an instructor of this course, and then she forwarded it to me, and he pretty much said the same thing, where he was felt dragged kicking and screaming into taking this course, and then had this aha moment, and it was really just halfway through the course where he realized how valuable it was. So I'm planning to follow up with that student to get a sense of what it was about the course. Is it the description, or is it the fact that you have to take it early on, or what was maybe turning him off, so that we could perhaps adjust the description, or how advising is interfacing with students when they do call and seem apprehensive about it. Luckily, it's just a minority of students. No, not all students are positive. We definitely got feedback about that text, as I was saying, so we're working with the author so that 6th edition, which I can't remember the exact date it's coming out, but that it's been updated to not refer to that very traditionally aged students. We've had other students say, well, I could have gotten this information myself, which may or may not be true, but I think just having this all laid out in a course that they have access to, that they can go back to, and they save a lot of these documents, saves a lot of time and trouble itself. A component of this course, which I'll dive into now, is the mentor program. So the mentor program is set up to help guide these students. So they're finishing up with this course, they're going on to take other psychology courses, and it's to provide information beyond what advising can provide. So we want to be a useful source of information for students, help them bounce ideas off, provide guidance, maybe be a source for an eventual letter of recommendation, really get to know the students, be a trusted source, and be there throughout their program of study since they are taking this course fairly early on. It's very open-ended. It's driven by the students' needs, questions, concerns. So what happens, the last week of class, there's an announcement, and students also get an email where they're invited to contact a mentor. So I'm a mentor, the program director, and then I have 2 core faculty, and then the coordinator as well. So we are all the mentors, and it's just assigned based on last name, just to make things easy. Although if I've had a student reach out to me from this course, or one of the faculty has already made that connection with the student, we can certainly rearrange mentors as needed, but it's just to keep things fair and even that it's just assigned based on last name. So students are told about this program, they're told it's voluntary, that it's up to them to initiate contact. They're suggested that they send an email to their mentor just to introduce themselves. So even if they don't have a question, they can say, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, you're my assigned mentor, I just wanted to introduce myself." So again, it's a very voluntary program. So digging into some of the data, looking to see how many students are signing up for this. Are they staying in our program? Are they retaining longer? Are they staying at Walden for graduate school? So as I said, this course started in the spring of 2016, and I took the data in spring of 2019. We've had 1,044 students that have completed the course, and that means that they've taken the course and passed. The course itself is graded pass-fail, so they have to have 70% to get the S. If not, they fail the course, and so that group of students was not counted in the students as having completed. We had 120 students that have signed up since the course started, and those that passed. We've had 120 students sign up to be in the mentor program. So that's a little over 1%. So not a lot of students are signing up for this program. Before we initiated a formal mentor program, and before the course even started, we did a pilot mentor program because we did want to get a sense of how many students would take advantage of it. So for the pilot, they were emailed and told about the program and offered the option to have a mentor, and it was about the same amount of students. So we went ahead with it knowing that we probably would not be inundated, that this would not end up taking up all of our days. And we think the numbers are low, partly just because of bandwidth. Our students are very busy. Kimberly talked about with the DREAM Act, we have students that have a lot of things going on, you know, to the level of there's a disasters category for her program. So knowing our students have busy lives, this is voluntary, they just might not have the bandwidth to add one more thing. The students that do sign up, about half of them email and about half have at least one 30 to 60-minute phone call. The conversations are around degree planning while at Walden, or maybe they're planning advanced degrees at other schools, so that involves discussing what that all entails, letting students know about AIM, although they are introduced to AIM in this course. The conversations are not usually around specific courses or instructors. It does happen, but meaning to say that it's not necessarily issues or complaints, which is often what ends up in our inbox. I've really enjoyed the conversations and getting to know the students that have been assigned as my mentees, because it really is that growth-oriented conversation. We do get to know each other. We talk about hopes and dreams and things going on in their lives. So things that advising wouldn't necessarily be talking to students about. Across the board, because I've had everyone that's involved, all the faculty members, keep notes on this. About 60% of the students remain in contact via email, but a lot of them, the rest of them disappear after that initial email or phone call. So we only have a handful of those students, 120, request multiple phone calls. So the ones that I've kept in contact with really it's a small handful out of all of the ones that have at least had one email or phone call with. The next slide is a bit more of the data on this. So looking at whether our students are staying at Walden, are they still active, taking classes? Have they graduated? And if so, are they staying on at Walden? There was a bit of disconnect with the data because we had some students that were just coming up as missing. We had advising help us fill in this, so they couldn't find an ID or their name was common. So it's likely that they could still be active. In fact, I had a couple of students that showed up on the missing list that the faculty said, well, I just talked to that student, or they just told me they went on to this graduate program at Walden. So luckily it's not a lot, but it's a little bit concerning that some of them can't be tracked down. Even if we've just talked to them, they're not showing up on another list. The good news is that a majority are either active or graduated. So our students are still at Walden, still taking classes, still moving ahead. And then a good chunk of them, 21%, have graduated. And then we have at least a half a dozen that we know of that are still at Walden in a graduate program. We also have students that have dropped out on their own volition, or they've been withdrawn because they've had multiple Fs, or they've had financial aid issues or personal issues, or have low GPA. So if we're going to continue to look at this and collect data, it'd be good to get some GPA data to see how students are doing, and then how this compares in general before we instituted this course and the pilot program, just to get a sense of are more staying on or more active, longer, retention as a whole. What does that look like compared to before we instituted this? Why don't you go on to the next couple of slides? I have some feedback about the mentor program on the next few slides, just so you get a sense that students really do appreciate that mentor component. So the next two are open-ended comments from the student feedback portion. Again, realizing that faculty are there to help students, to be guides. It isn't us versus them, as this particular comment says. And then one of the students was mentioning being mentored by me, which I really enjoy. And I think students can tell I really like talking to them because they're not coming to me because of some fire to put out or some issue. That they're not upset about anything. They're reaching out on their own time, their own volition. And it's just been a highlight for me since we started this. Some of the other takeaways is that, again, we only have a few students that are taking advantage of this program. So we, excuse me, have had conversations as to whether we should be emailing them or we're the ones that are proactive instead of putting it on the students. I know I myself have started emailing my mentees when I haven't heard from them. Faculty were a little resistant, just wondering what if all of a sudden that the number that we're interested doubled, which I don't think would be the case, but it's finding that line between having the time and space and bandwidth to do this and making it value added versus all of a sudden if we have a lot more students, are we going to have time and remain as positive about it as we would. Students definitely run the gamut as far as not strong versus strong, so it's not just the straight A students. Definitely had less strong students reach out, but anecdotally realizing that they might not keep in touch or follow up, but at least they're realizing that they could benefit from the extra help. The list does not include students that we mentor through other channels, because I know faculty just informally become mentors. I will often offer to mentor students that they contact me for various reasons, so then they become part of my fold of mentees, and I treat them the same as I would my other one. But as you can see from the comments, the students have been largely positive about the program. And what about you? If you're a faculty member, whether full-time or contributing, you're not a program director, you're not going to be able to start something like this on your own. What are some takeaways that you could do for this? I think just offering those one-on-one conversations with students to talk about future planning. What are you interested in? What are your goals? Offer to be a mentor if you have that time and bandwidth and interest to do that. Consider offering extra resources in the doc sharing area. Sometimes it's hard to get students to read just our announcement with very important information, but there are those students that are interested in that extra information and resources, and doc sharing is a good place to put some of that. So referring them to an article about careers, external websites. We also had, as part of this course, we built what we call the resource site. It's in this psychology seminar course, but it's linked to in all of our courses. They really are one and the same, but they're broken out here because there's 2 different sections. So the first one is just our general BS psychology resource site. So I'll give you a sneak peek of that. Here we have a list of all our faculty and courses they teach, links to our newsletter, all the courses that are available as part of our program, more information about the mentor program, so if they come to this website not through the seminar course, they can still sign up for it. Frequently asked questions based on Walden students, and then just some more resources, both internal and external to Walden. And then the other website, again, it's still part of this, but I'm linking to it separately because it's another focus is exploring careers. So it's all the different areas of psychology, where the jobs are listed, where the internships are listed. I try to post articles that are relevant to students in psychology thinking about this. And then we have videos of various people at Walden that all had undergraduate psychology degrees, but they're all doing something different now. So that's also a good resource. So if you have the option to suggest this to your faculty, trying to set up something like this has been great. And I maintain the links and make sure everything's up to date. And then the last piece is if your program, and I do think we are the only program that maybe has a course like this, but just thinking about what that would look like for your own program or how you could fold elements of something like this into your courses. So thanks for listening. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dr. Costello. And at this point, as long as my clicker starts working here, I'm having a little problem getting to the next slide. There we go. I'm going to hand things off to Dr. Armstrong. Welcome, Dr. Armstrong.
Thank you so much. We have a little bit different of a program that we implemented in the School of Health Sciences undergrad programs, but the purpose is the same, and that is to support our undergrad students, their needs, many of those that have been discussed by Patty and Kimberly already, just juggling multiple responsibilities, not prepared academically, not prepared for the online environment, and really struggling, especially in first term and first year courses. We also identified another problem within our school vertical, and that is that many of our doctoral students were leaving with their graduate degree and desired teaching positions, but didn't have the teaching experience needed to move into those. And so we just brainstormed, this is back actually at National Faculty Meeting in 2015, how we could solve 2 problems with one pilot program. So we started out, we launched our first teaching assistant cohort in the fall of 2016 with the goal of increasing undergrad student in my programs, the Bachelor's in Health Studies, Bachelor's in Public Health, and Bachelor's of Healthcare Management, their persistence, their engagement, and their retention through the use of teaching assistants. There is a lot of research in the literature about how TAs or graduate assistant GAs have the use of them in brick and mortar universities has really helped improve learning effectiveness. It's helped students achieve their course learning outcomes, improve grades, providing additional classroom support, feedback, and interaction for both the student and the faculty member, which in turn leads to higher retention. So I just know that many of us served as TAs or GAs at some point in our career, which launched our profession into academics, and we wanted to be able to provide the same opportunities for students in the School of Health Sciences, all while supporting my undergrad students and our needs. We work with HR to create job descriptions for the teaching assistants, and we do send these out internally only. They're not posted externally, but we use student communication to send these out to all of the doctoral students in our School of Health Sciences vertical. And so it's a pretty detailed job description. The criteria is that these teaching assistants must be enrolled as grad students at Walden during their commitment. So once they get to degree conferral, they have to resign their position. And we pay them $500 a month to actively engage in our courses and with our students and the faculty mentors. And that $500 is typically used to pay for their courses at Walden or other needs while they are working on their doctoral work. But again, these students are not only receiving a small stipend, but generating the experience needed to move into teaching positions once they do graduate with their degrees. We place our teaching assistants in our foundations courses and our high retention courses. So we use a lot of data to generate this. Of course, our foundations courses have historically been an issue, and I think that's the case across the university, where the students just aren't really 100% sure what they're getting into. They don't have the support system in place. They don't have the time management in place. And in these foundation courses, we had done our own observational research and really identified that our faculty members in there were spending about 30% more time compared to upper level courses, not teaching necessarily, not focusing on the content, but really more on hand-holding, helping students, navigate the online classroom, helping connect them to university resources, helping them understand, the learning outcomes, and how to use the discussion forum and where to submit assignments. And so we, have always placed our really our best faculty on these front lines, but I was burning them out, and that was an additional problem. We also used our learning outcome review, our lore book, to look at other courses that had retention issues, or just areas where students were really struggling with specific assignments, and we placed the teaching assistants in there as well. We can go on to the next slide. So as I mentioned, we started this in the fall of 2016, and we are about to launch our 5th hiring cohort. So although it started as a one-year pilot program, this has really become something that is very stable, that we depend on within my 3 programs. And it's been a great recruiting tool for our graduate programs as well, for those students who want to apply to become teaching assistants. So we typically hire 5 at one point in time. And this is just one of the best things that I love about my job, although it's an extensive hiring process because we have so many students interested in these positions. But it makes me realize the amazing students that we have at Walden in our doctoral programs, and what the experience that they bring and what they're doing in their communities and what their goals are. And it's just a really exciting time to get to talk to these doctoral students and see how they can fit into our programs and better support the undergrad students. So once we hire the cohort of 5, they do go through a very extensive onboarding process. And so originally we created our own training area through Blackboard's course sites. And so we would enroll each cohort in there, and we included the various modules that you see here on the screen from the MyLearn site. So our teaching assistants had to complete the FERPA training and academic integrity, university policies. Under each training, they either had to upload their certificate of completion or the quiz results to show that they have a good understanding and have passed each area successfully. And once they finished their training modules, they met with both myself and our program coordinator, and then eventually their mentoring faculty member. So, you know, we had some really tough issues in the beginning, and it seems like these issues pop their heads up with every cohort that we hire. And the issues are, they're surrounding technology. So our students are students at Walden, and they have to access the student platform to access their courses, and they have a student email. When they are hired as a teaching assistant or a graduate assistant, they are given a faculty member email. They're given faculty access to the classroom that they're serving as a teaching assistant in, and this can get really messy. Our grad students lose access to their own courses, or they lose access to the courses that they're teaching in. And so the workaround that we identified is that we just recommend that they have separate browsers. So as a student in their grad student role, they will log on to the student portal and use their student email, maybe through Chrome. And then in their teaching assistant role and accessing their Walden email and their faculty email, they will use Internet Explorer or Foxfire. And so this is just the workaround that we identified that seems to help, but there's just, I don't know, something clunky there. We can go on to the next slide. So the faculty member and the program director, coordinator, we sit down and we divide the course responsibilities. We do require that the teaching assistant spend about 10 hours a week in the course. Certainly that includes student outreach, that includes a live office hour once a week, that includes interacting with students in the discussion, the contact the instructor area, includes reaching out to students who they've identified as having academic writing issues. We implemented a policy such as what we call APA just in time, where the students, you know, evaluating writing will reach out to, or the TA is evaluating writing throughout the week, will reach out to the student, just give a slight recommendation so the student can improve their assignment or their discussion before the deadline. And students in our programs are also responsible with some grading. We wanted to make sure that the graduate students who leave Walden and are applying for teaching positions have experienced grading. And so we do evaluate these assignments very closely. You can see in the division of course responsibility slide that's on your screen, the students are grading all of the health journals in this course. And those are complete or non-complete submissions, but they do, the students, the teaching assistants are required to give a lot of individualized substantive feedback, a lot of motivational advice, but it's not really content heavy. We can go on to the next slide. Since we are ending our third year of having teaching assistants in our program, we have been looking at a lot of different data. And the first one is running, you know, different statistical tests, specifically retention into next term. And so as you can see here, we're looking at our foundations level courses, comparing the courses with the teaching assistants compared to those without the teaching assistant. And although we see some positive trends here, there was no significant relationship found at this point yet. We can move into the next slide. Thank you so much. Again, we evaluate our learning outcome assessment each year. And as I noted previously, you know, a lot of these assignments, such as the upper level courses, 2110, 3110, you know, these were identified as courses where students were struggling and where the program could make improvements in the curriculum. We didn't have the opportunity to make curricular changes at this point in time. So our main focus was the teaching assistants to help improve our lore book. And you can see here that we have the pre-teaching assistant grades, so before the 2016 implementation, and then these post-teaching assistant grades, having the students in there for a full, or having the teaching assistants in there to support the students and the faculty for a full 2 years. And we've also included the failures in the right 2 columns. So although, you know, a lot of the data that has been analyzed at this point has come back with without statistical significance, from an administrator standpoint, myself and certainly our dean and the School of Health Sciences, certainly from the faculty and the students, we see the practical significance of having these teaching assistants in the classes. We survey our faculty mentors at the end of each term, and we have 100% responses that the TA did not overstep their role as a faculty member. They knew their role in the classroom and they did it well. I would like to mention one thing that we noted in the very beginning is that the faculty member really has to do a very good job and do it continuously of informing the students in the class who this extra person is, what their roles and responsibilities are, and how they can help support the students. So they send out announcements introducing the person and highlighting them as a teaching assistant. It's posted in the contact the instructor area. They are reminded in the discussion and via email. So we want to make sure the student understands who the teaching assistant is and that they can reach out for them for writing assistance, for any type of support, such as the DREAM acronym that Kimberly mentioned. We've really integrated that into our teaching assistants discussions with students when they are reaching out to students that they see are struggling or may have not turned in an assignment, to start those type of conversations. And the students are very appreciative. They see the teaching assistant as someone more on their level. They're also in school, they're working full time, they have family responsibilities, more on their level compared to the instructor in the course. And so they're really more open to having these open discussions and dialogues, but also connecting them to the university resources and just assistance with assignments. So our faculty also believe that the TA's presence in the class better supports the students. Certainly that the TA's presence better supports the faculty member, and that the TA's presence positively impacts student progress and retention. Going back to some of the issues we've had in our 1,000-level courses, I don't have faculty asking to leave those classes anymore. They're not getting burned out. They do state that they don't know if they would ever teach them again without the assistance of the teaching assistant, but they are in there and they have that person to work with and to help support the students that really need it the most. You can go on to the next slide. So the students, our undergraduate students in the classes, the majority of them believe that having TAs in future courses would be helpful, that the TA played some role in their success, that the TA's graded feedback was substantive and detailed, and about a quarter of the students did note that they contacted the TA outside of the classroom, whether that was in the live chat, via phone, or just via email. And next slide, please. So we love hearing the qualitative feedback. Certainly the comments here comes from our undergraduate students' perspective, and most of them note They just really appreciated the additional support that they have in the class, the additional liaison, the writing tips that were provided, helping with research, and our research methods and analysis class has been extremely helpful. Again, going back to writing skills, just having more comfort in asking the TA rather than the professor. And even that feedback was graded much quicker thanks to the multiple offers of assistance. And I certainly didn't want to be biased and not give you some of the ugly as well. So our next slide shows some of the more, some of the negative comments on how students view teaching assistants. One student noted that the TA was a distraction from the professor. Another student just doesn't want this to be a replacement for the faculty, which is certainly not our goal. And then one student mentioned useless, nothing. So we're always going to have that side of it as well. But overall, I can just tell you from our perspective, you know, this is something that, again, we thought would last a year, and we continue on. It's become something very stable and consistent in our program. We call it the win-win-win-win because of the support that it provides to our faculty, the experience it provides to the graduate level students, the support it provides to the students, and then certainly from an administrative perspective, we see the benefits in terms of access and cost and scale. We can go on to the last slide. This just provides our contact information. So the three of us, Kimberly, Patty, and myself, again, are all within the undergrad programs, and our goals, although our projects are different, our goals are the same, and that is just to support our undergraduate students' needs and also help achieve the goals of Walden University and supporting our strategic pillars. If you have any questions, please reach out to one of us. Our email addresses are posted on the slides. We'd be happy to give you more information. Thank you so much.